Hey everybody, it's Cobalt, and I'm here with another tutorial, and this one's going to be on swordplay, and so let's start off. Now, to start off with swords, it's important to know that the blade, it should be kind of like an extension of the stick figure. You don't want it to look really awkward. You want it to be um, a part of him, and you need to make sure that his body moves accordingly. You need to make sure that whatever he does with the sword, it matches the rest of his body and his bodily poses. So to start off, I made a basic example with the katana. Let me take the onion skin off. So he does a slash, and now for a slash, there are two kinds of hits. Now, whenever I first began, and I'm sure a lot of people who began have the same problem, the only thing that they can do with the sword is a downward slash, basically, where they swing it like down, or an upward slash, where they swing it upward. Oops, upward. But it's really hard to get the horizontal slash, where you're gonna bring your arms around, and I'm just gonna draw the way the arm would be. Here, I'll use dotted lines for behind his head, and it would be a slash in this direction across his body, kinda. And so the way you do that basically is you want it to look quick, so you have one frame where his arm is in front of him with the sword, with the trail coming across his body, and then you have, for the next frame, you would have his arm on the other side, and you could, if you want to, you could add a trail behind his head like this, so that it looked like it made a full rotation. And now, instead of these crude drawings, let me show you with the actual animation. So I had right here where the sword was in front of him. He was swinging it like that with that there, and then the next frame, it's behind him. So it looks like he's swinging it like a full slash. It looks like it's spinning from here all the way around behind his head over here. It doesn't look like it's going straight up or straight down. And this is another thing, you need to work on perspective in your animations. Even if they're 2D, you need to have the certain limbs that are behind him, you need to have them smaller than the ones that are in front of him. Whenever you're doing certain attacks, you just want to position things to look as if he's a 3D figure moving in a 2D plane. You don't want all your attacks to look extremely 2D, like just up and down slashes. You want it to look like a 3D slash all the way around him. So, he brings the sword around, then he grasps it in both hands, and he's getting ready to stab, and then, because it's a katana and a smaller weapon, he can move very quickly with it. So you don't have to have too many frames between attacks unless it's something really complicated. So he brings it in and stabs him, and then he pulls it up and cuts the guy in half and throws his body. So let's play the whole combo. And just one of the really important points that I wanted to make was about the 3D slashes as opposed to just up and down ones. So I really hope I got that across. And as with the stabbing, it's basically just taking this point and bringing it into the stick figure. And yeah. And there are tons of different attacks you can do with the sword, just tons. But a lot of them are going to always be variations of either the horizontal strike, which is where he brings it around, or just the vertical up and down strike, or a jab with the weapon, like you see right here. And so basically you just want to learn those three basics. And right here I have all three in this animation. I have the slash, the jab, and then just an upward strike kind of thing. Even though he's pulling him in half, it's still just an upward strike like that. And so yeah, that's the animation. And once you practice those and learn all three, you can vary them and you can have multiple different attacks in your sword combos. Now another thing about swords is the size of the sword. Now I made a second example with a big sword, and this was to show that the size and weight of a sword can affect the attacks. And the best way to show this is basically having a lot more frames in between attacks, like after the attack, like easing out of it. Now swinging the sword actually pulls him forward because it weighs so much, and then afterward it takes a good amount of frames. It takes, okay, let's see real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 frames for him to fully recover from that swing before being ready to bring up the next one. And because the sword is so massive, when he's pulling it over his head, it also takes a lot of frames. It takes 1, 2, 3, and that's a lot more than if he was doing it with this sword. If you're doing it with a katana, you only need 1 or 2, and then bam, you just do this swipe, and it's pretty quick. But with a larger sword like this, you want enough frames in between attacks to make it look like it has weight. And even with this large sword, they're still kind of fast. I mean, depending on how slow you want it, is how much it weighs or how strong your stick figure could be. But this was I think it was a decent example. And he's still using, the first one is the horizontal slash, where he brings the sword from here all the way around his body. Maybe even a better example than the katana slash. See? Because I even did the trail behind his head, obviously showing that the sword went behind him. And then the second one is the 2D downward slash that I told you about. Now that you know the basic 3 different kinds of slashes that swords can do, the different attacks, I'm going to talk to you about trails. Now, for sword trails, there's, I think, 3 main different ways that people do them. Some people like to draw them themselves, like that, or however, they like to draw them with the brush themselves. Or they could just draw them and fill them in like that. Other people like to use the line tool, and what they do is they make a triangle in the basic area that they want, and then they change to the mouse, and they drag it. Now be aware that to drag the triangle like this, all the sides have to be attached, and to do this, either you can have the magnet tool on, the snap to objects, whenever you are making it, and make sure that your lines are connected, or if you have it turned off, and you make it, and it may not be perfectly connected afterward, when you go with the mouse, you can just grab the corner and attach it to it. And, well, I'm sorry. You have to turn this on, and then you can just grab it and attach it to it. But I just suggest, using the magnet tool. Now, with lines, once you make your different trails, and you drag them however you want, and make sure that the placing, either whether they're above the stick figure or behind him, and you can control that by which layer you put them on, if you put them up top or behind him. Like for this, I wanted to show the sword going across his front from here to here, so I made sure to put the trail on top of him and actually put it going across his body. That's important. Don't be afraid to have the trail going over your stick figure. So once you get the kind of trails you like, you can either fill it in with the full color, or you can add sort of a fading out effect. And to do this, you go over here to your colors in your bucket, and in the type, you're gonna go click on this drop down arrow, and it'll bring up a box. And instead, you have solid, linear, radial, and bitmap. Now, some people try to use linear because it's a fading effect, but I find that radial works much better. And so what you want to do is you want to double click this and put the color of the weapon, the blade, or whatever color you want the main part of the trail to be. And the other part you're going to leave white, or you could change it to the color of the background, I think. And what you do is you click on the whatever you're fading it out to be. So this will be your darker color, and it'll fade out to this color. You're going to click the alpha, and you're going to drag it down, and you can play around with this until you like it. I normally put it somewhere in the 30s. And oh, I can't believe I did that. Another important thing is to make sure that this little tool right here, the lock fill, is turned off, so that you can edit it, play around with it. Don't know why. Wait a second. Sorry. Just gonna have to pause it. Okay, sorry about that. I got it. So once you fix that and you make it the color of the background so that it fades to look like it's fading into the background, um, what you're gonna do is wherever you click, it'll put the lighter color or the color on the left, and you're just gonna position that closest to the sword because should be the color of the weapon. Then you double click on one of the attached lines. If you double click on it, it'll highlight all of them that are attached, and you can just backspace, and there you have your trail, and it looks like it's fading from the color of the weapon to the background. And then you can just place that on your weapon like so. Here, let me just put it up here. And there you have it. And the alpha lets you see what's under it, and it fades to the background. So there you go. And those are the main different kinds of trails. So you have the drawn, you have the drawn, the fill, oops, just the solid fill, and then you have the one that fades. And there are some codes. There are some codes for sword trails which add like special glowy effects and stuff, and you can use those if you like. I didn't include any of those because I don't really use those myself, and I don't have any of the codes with me. But you can find them if you just search on Google or something. You could probably find a code. Or if you just want it to look kind of glowy, you could just click on the trail and make it a